it might be interesting to explain what Southern gospel music is. So, 100 years ago, there were songbook companies out in Texas and other places that sold songbooks for singing conventions. And so, a lot of the small county churches in the area may remember singing conventions. I mean, that's before there was anything else to do. And these representatives from these songbook companies would come into your local church and they would teach your people in your church how to read shape notes, which made reading music easier. And so they would spend a week with children and youth and adults and senior adults and teach them how to sing
The do-re-mis.
the do-re-mis, and then they would sell them the songbooks. That lasted, and that was a gigantic deal in the South, a big cultural thing that people still talk about. That changed with the advent of recordings, of records. So in the 50s, late 40s and early 50s, two groups, the Blackwood Brothers and the Statesman Quartet, figured out we don't need to sell songbooks, we don't need to work for a songbook company. We can tour on our own and sell our albums. And so both of those groups recorded for RCA Victor, the biggest recording company in the world at that time. And so they began to travel around and not just sing in churches. And of course they weren't teaching, but they were singing in auditoriums and high school gyms and football fields and the front of old country stores. And it was a sure enough gigantic cultural movement. The Blackwood Brothers had a concert in Memphis once a month. They had one in Tupelo once a month. They'd stop in Tupelo on Friday and then be in Memphis on Saturday at the Cook Convention Center, and the thing would be sold out. And you mentioned Elvis. Elvis came to all those shows, and they knew him. They'd sneak him through the back door as a kid to see those shows. So it was,
if you think of superstars today, they were, in a way, big-time stars on that circuit.
And the difference between the country stars of that day and the gospel stars of that day were that the country stars, you could hear both on the radio, you could see both on TV, but only the gospel stars came to Tupelo. You know, the big Hank Williams wasn't coming to Tupelo. And so they'd come to your hometown once a month, and that, you know, there'd be 10, 15,000 people at those concerts. So that went on, and there were other groups in that circle until the 70s, and a syndicated TV show called the Gospel Singing Jubilee began to air with the Florida Boys and the Happy Goodmans and the Rambos, and that broke the Statesman Blackwood brother monopoly on the industry. And then, because those shows were airing all over the country, all you had to do was air a commercial on that television station that, hey, these groups are going to be in your hometown on Saturday, and the place would be packed. So that opened up really the world to that silver age of gospel music. And every region had their own little local group or regional group that would open those shows. And it was part church service and part vaudeville and part musical recital, and it was just a big deal. By the time we were in high school, that had kind of died. Those original performers had retired, and then in the 90s, Bill Gaither started doing homecoming videos where he gathered all these retired gospel singers together from those road days, and there was a gigantic revival of that type of music, which happened by the time we started singing.
Yeah, and I think that we were all born in 1975, and so we were on the tail end of the Silver Age, as it was you called it. So we still got to see some of the groups that came, but the groups that were coming, that used to come to New Albany to the high school, were the Kingsmen Quartet. The Inspirations came a lot to Tupelo, and so those male quartets. When we were 5 and 6, we were going to see them, and you know, on the front row, on every word, and so that's what, you know, whet my appetite, and yours too.
Yeah.
I think about the same time. You had recordings,
Right.
with
I listened to the
cathedrals, right?
cathedrals on Sunday morning, and so you talk about timing. We've talked about this before. It's 1975. If you're in
Yeah.
the right place at the right time, the other closing, the other coming in, and then it was right for us to just really get into it.
And funny enough, the thing that got going was we were at church camp and we found a recording of the Kingsmen doing an a cappella song, and we lip synced it.
Yeah.
We had a group of guys at that church camp that lip synced this. Nobody had ever heard anything like that, and it just killed.
It did.
And we spent the summer doing that routine at our church, everywhere we could do it.
I mean, you had your tenor, I think I was baritone, and you were lead on that one.
I was the bass.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
But yeah, lip syncing to a gospel music song, and literally, I remember that camp. 1,300 kids going nuts for Southern gospel acapella.
Yeah.
Like,
So I said this might be fun to actually sing.
Yeah.
Could we
sing
try
this.
singing it?
Yeah.
But I
You
want to
weren't
say
even singing.
I know it.
No.
I want to say something about what made those concerts so interesting. And I remember my parents took me to see the Kingsmen in Tupelo when I was 5 years old, and I'm sure I'd been to gospel concerts before that, but that one I came home and told my parents I want to sing tenor in a gospel group when I grow up. That's what I want to do. Things that made those gospel concerts unique were that, again, these singers were coming to your area once a month or quarterly, and so folks got to know them. So the way those programs worked was the group would come, you'd have a local group or a regional group from the area. They would sing 20 minutes. There'd be a B-level group that would sing 30 or 40 minutes, and then your headliner would come on and they would sing an hour. And they would sing stuff from their new album and or from the last two albums. And then there'd be an intermission. And during the intermission, the artists didn't hide. They went to their record table and not just sold you records and told you what songs were on what and which ones you would like and meet your mom and your daddy and establish relationships, but they had notepads back there. And so you say, hey, I want to hear the Old Ship of Zion. And this one would say, hey, I want to hear this. Well, that was on 8 albums ago. I don't know if this singer knows it. But they'd make a list of requests.
Yeah.
And then so the second half, they'd come back and they would do another hour of just requests. And it got so loose, people would make requests from the audience and people would do it. And then after the concert, they went back to their record table and they would stay and visit with you as long as possible. So they were stars, but they were also your friends and neighbors. It was different than anything else. And they all had piano players and they all faced the stage with their right hand toward the audience because it was the one doing all the moving. And it
I've
was
got
like
a funny story on the way we did things. You finish a concert, go to the table. How you doing? Thanks for coming. Would you like a CD or cassette?
Yeah.
Back then, but I was so naive to it. Some buddies and I went to Mud Island to see Chicago in concert. So I'm like, all right, going to see Chicago. There we go. And we got there, and I think it got rained out or something. But anyway, I go to the table.
No Chicago.
There are no cassettes. They have some T-shirts, and that's how naive I was. I was like, where are the people? And so, anyway, that was it. That's the unique part of what we're doing here.
Yeah.
And the show was unique. Again, you had the piano player doing the greatest piano player you've ever heard.
Right.
And then the guy singing bass, singing low. I mean, he doesn't sing bass like the guy in your church choir.
Right.
You've never heard anybody sing that low. And the tenor singer, no, you've never heard anybody sing that high. And you've never heard anybody sing lead, like that.
Yeah.
The baritone kind of filled in the blanks. So it was
All
thrilling.
unique parts.
Yeah. And you had comedy. I mean,
There
there was a
would be-
big bit, everybody had their bit, and, there was, and the reason I love the Kingsmen so much was because of that. They had the best MC at the time in the business, and he, as soon as he stepped on the stage, he had you,
Yeah.
and
It was
you didn't take your eyes
Almost
off
like
the
it was as
stage.
much personality as it was.
Exactly.
Well, with some groups. it
And
was the
two, what
personality.
you were talking about, when they came through and you start to make relationships with these people, and they are real people. I mean, if you booked them, they would go eat catfish with you before or after the concert, and you start to, know these people before there's a Facebook or anything like that. And so, it's a unique thing.
And it was
all its own.
It was a subculture that was perpetuated through a magazine called the Singing News Magazine, which had the charts for gospel charts and stories about the groups. But in the back, they published every group's itinerary. So if you subscribe to that, you could where those groups were, and you'd see the same people, every month or wherever. Those folks followed that through that magazine.
Yeah. And so I think probably like 1980 is when we were, like the 80s would be when we were really into it for a period. And then I think we experienced kind of the end. But about 1990 or so, somehow I found a cassette in a current, recording in a record store. Nobody knows. In the mall you used to go buy cassettes and CDs. And I saw this group that I had kind of heard of called Gold City. Mm-hmm. I'd never been to see them, didn't know anything about them, but they had a 10th anniversary live. So I thought, well, I'm going to buy that, get and check it out. And that's when it kind of was reborn for me. Man, they were good.
Oh yeah.
And they had a great show. And they started to come to our area.
Right within reach.
And so we would go everywhere that Gold City came. We were there, Tupelo or Hamilton, Alabama, within driving range. And we saw a high school friend who I hadn't seen in ages just a few months ago. And he said, remember, we used to take like 2 vehicles to those things.
All our friends, hey, y'all come with us.
2 church buses. Yeah. We were
It's
taking
like
16, 17-year-olds to these gospel concerts. And there were a couple groups during that time that were still doing really well, but mostly that whole industry had kind of died down. But Gold City and the Cathedral Quartet, and they were still drawing 1,500 folks, 2,000 folks. And then there's a big event every year called the National Quartet Convention. It used to be in Memphis, and then it was in Nashville, and then Louisville, Kentucky. And I mean, there'd be 20,000 folks there every night. It's just a big gospel music festival.
And what were the ages of like this Gold City when you discovered them? How old were they?
I'm gonna say they were
Most
they
in
were
the
older.
20s. I mean, Tim Riley
Tim
would have been
was older.
probably
They had
40s.
an older bass singer, but the guys were young,
Right.
and they were as good at what they did as anybody.
And
had
those
ever
unique
been.
voices were all there. The lead singer, incredible, high tenor. All the things were in that puzzle.
In the
And
best looking suits you've
Right,
ever seen, hair perfect. I mean, they looked like stars, and to us they were, but
And two, they mostly had a live band.
yes.
Up to that point, most everybody had at least a piano player and a bass player. And so everything was very fluid. Not like when we sing with tracks, we're locked into a tempo and but they could change keys and they could do all these things
do
like
that second
request.
verse again. Slow it down.
Yeah.
Do that second.
And so there was a lot of flexibility to the program, and
The live albums during that time were sold extremely well because the audience was so involved in the performance itself, talking to the singers, shouting encouragement,
hooping and hollering.
hooping and hollering. You talked about the Kingsmen on that Live Naturally album. They did an opening set of an hour. They came back. They did another whole album of requests, and at the end you can hear the MCs trying to wind it up, and somebody from the crowd said, you're not about to quit on us.
Yeah.
And so they sang another 3 or 4 songs. So there was just a whole lot of audience participation, not just at the record table, but in the concert
it was
itself.
informal,
Yeah.
while still holding some kind of star power over the audience.
Although I'll never forget, the Kingsmen were at the high school in New Albany, and Jim Hamill was their MC, the best that ever did it.
Yeah, that's it.
And somebody started hollering request in the first half, which was a breach of etiquette. You don't holler request.
How great thou art.
They're singing. They're singing from the new album that they need to sell at the intermission.
hold on.
Just hold on. And some woman kept hollering for some song, and Jim Hamill, the MC, just stopped the show and said, "Lady, if I wanted to get hollered at by a woman, I'd have stayed home with my wife." All right, we're going to and the place just fell apart.
Yeah.
But so that's kind of the music that really inspired us to do what we've done.
Yeah. And so when I guess after that church camp where we lip synced, we started to think about a group. And y'all can help me fill in the blanks, but I remember getting to the point where my mom played the piano and helped us, and had been to all those singing conventions and played
Yes.
piano with all that.
Old school stuff.
And so helped us get a song together or whatever. But we all grew up at First Baptist Church, Phil Nanny was the minister of music for a long period of time. I don't know what it was. He could tell you that, but he had sung with the Landmark, so he knows this kind of music. And so when we started to develop that, he helped us, with harmony and teach us a lot of things about it too. So that began to foster within the church, and I think that's why ours has
More
always
church
been
based.
connected to the church, more so than a vaudeville act or whatever.
Right.
But we were influenced by all of that for sure. But I think
Well, I'll say about Phil too, a key part of what he did with us was he gave us enough attention to really get it dialed in and get those triads and get the parts we needed there. But he wasn't too tough on us. We found our own sound, and we didn't. I mean, we all took band. Did we pay attention in band? I don't know. But we knew how to make the harmony. We knew what we liked. Now, whether those chords are correct or doing the thing they need to do, but he was very a big part of making that sound happen, but standing back enough to say, all right, y'all take it and go with it.
Yeah.
So,
And so we were reminded of this at a concert last Saturday night that Bradley's mother was playing piano for us, and Phil Nanny was kind of helping us dial our harmony in, and our pastor, Tom Summerall, passed and heard us and said, y'all need to sing that Sunday night. And so we didn't know we were ready, but he thought we were. So we actually sang instead of lip sync. We sang on Sunday night.
August the 4th, 1991.
And
I
then-
had that in my mind because it was written on a VHS tape on the sticker.
with all the tracks.
Because First Baptist was televised.
That's right.
And this is important too.
Yeah.
For us, it was televised. And so every time we sang, it was, televised locally. And so
But
we've
that
got
was enough for what we
VHS
were
tapes
doing.
where we recorded that night service and write the date on it. And so I think that helped.
Well,
that
you have
helped
a
good
lot
bit.
of kindness. You have a lot of kindness going on at
That's-
that point.
that's
We're
very
talking about
true.
15 years old, singing our stuff, and it was raw. It was very raw.
But it was not bad.
But we were up there in our suits. We were giving it our best shot.
Double-breasted.
And
All
you're
good.
right. People were very kind for a long time.
Yeah.
Uh,
While we worked it out.
And so you mentioned that about Phil being such an encouragement, but not trying to take over and not trying to. And that's something that was really generous and very helpful to us. And after we'd been singing at church just a little while, Linda Mize from New Albany had promoted these gospel concerts for years and was friends with all those gospel singers. And she was helping to promote a concert at the high school. And she wanted us to come play that local regional group role. And so we did. And it was a success. And we met folks that years later, one of my songwriting heroes was a lady named Diane Wilkinson. And I wrote songs with her. And she's maybe, besides Dottie Rambo, the best known songwriter in gospel music. But she had come to New Albany to hear the other two groups who were making their first appearance in Mississippi. So later, many years later, when we got to talking about music, and I said, you don't remember this, but I met you in New Albany. She said, are you that same kid? She said, I still remember that. She said, I remember meeting your little mama and everything. So, that very first concert in a high school auditorium in our suits and...
Well, and another part for that for me, it was Greater Vision, which was a trio, top of their game. And that was the first, I'd listened to the Cathedrals, which part of Greater Vision was associated with. But when I heard that trio sound, we were used to quartets, we were used to the bass and all that thing. But when I heard that trio, that zing and I was locked in. At that point, I was like, we got to do this. I've never been so nervous in my life as that concert.
Yeah,
But,
that was in November
1,000
of
people
'91. It was
scared to
only
death.
3 or 4 months after we sang for the first time.
Yeah.
So
we
for
were
Miss Linda
green.
to trust
to
us.
trust us with that, and we may not have sung a whole lot. I don't remember how
She
much.
gave us more time than I thought.
Yeah.
She may have given us 20 or 30 minutes.
I know.
It
I
felt
know
like a
we
lifetime.
sang at First Baptist once or twice, and then sang for a band event at the high
We
school
did.
outdoors.
I've got the newspaper clipping. They had the newspaper.
early on,
Is
but
when
that
the
was.
speakers blew over.
No,
I don't know. But I bet we couldn't have had 3 or 4 songs in our
But it was
repertoire at that
amazing.
point.
What was crazy about it was just like those teenagers who were at youth camp, who were going crazy over lip syncing. The people, our friends, our people in school were like, this is, I won't say cool. It was just something that was totally different. I mean, we've got 3 kids here who are just singing gospel music and doing a half good job, but it was just something.
It was a
lot of
novelty.
support from our school teachers, big time teachers were like, y'all go ahead, in churches. And then that small regional television turned into county churches, turned into Northeast Mississippi.
And at 16, we were at places like Harrisburg and Tupelo. They probably had
Right, they were
800 or
old.
900, 1,000 folks there, and they'd say, "Yeah, take the Sunday night service to 3 15-year-old kids,"
Right.
and the church would be packed. And so we have a lot of folks that we owe, for that happening. And the other deal we didn't mention was that concert at the high school. Those other 2 groups were incredibly generous to us and encouraged us and said, "Hey, yeah, maybe you need to do this, and we can help you do that." And it was. I've talked to Matt Nolan before about, if you were like him and a high school kid that was really into country music and rock music. There's only so many, at least then, there were only so many bars and places where you could play live country music in North Mississippi. I mean, there was a church on every corner.
Mm-hmm.
So at 15 and 16 years old, we probably sang 50 times a year
Oh yeah, easy.
in high school.
Easy.
Yeah.
Sunday nights, that was your
That was
Right.
typical
That's
gig.
all.
Sunday
always
night
been.
was the paid in full special.
And y'all were paid in full at that point.
Yes.
Y'all already had a
Good point on
name.
that one. We at first we did get the name pretty.
We were
early.
Young Men's Trio the
That's
first
right.
night.
Young Men's Trio.
and
then
for a couple times.
we had a little competition in our youth group, and Sean Maxon came up. He said, "What about paid in full?" We're like, "All right, I think you got a T-shirt or
Yeah.
something."
But I think it was we really wanted a name for that concert
right.
Yes.
with that Miss Linda promoted in
So she could
November.
put it on the poster.
Yeah,
Right.
so-
I've got the poster in
which-
my closet.
I've got a poster too,
Wow.
like the rainbow
One of
colored
the old rainbow tie-dye looking
hatch
layer.
print looking thing. But yeah, it was cool to have your name in small print at
Right.
the bottom.
Big
but
deal.
I think that's how the name happened, probably in those
Right.
first
We
3 or 4
needed a name,
months.
and it stuck. It was good.
Bradley's mother would drive us in her vehicle,
Starcraft band.
which
Starcraft
in a
van.
Starcraft van, which we needed some adult help and
some
we needed
guidance.
some supervision.
Yep.
And so she would drive us, and she would play piano, and then she would take whatever honorarium they gave, and it's typically one for you, one for you, one for you, one for the pot.
That's right.
One bought gas and one bought.
Yeah.
And then, were we seniors when our parents decided we needed to record an album?
Or wait. Rephrase that. When our parents,
Parents
we
allowed
convinced,
you,
you
yes.
convinced
I
our
convinced-
parents.
I believe it was '96 though.
No. We recorded in '92.
Oh, we did.
That very
We
first.
did.
So
I forgot about
it
that.
would have been, let's see, we graduated you and I graduated in '93. I think it was our junior year and maybe your sophomore year that we did that.
Only the best.
We
Only
got
the
our
best.
parents down into the church chapel, and I had prepared a whole sales speech, and
It's gonna
we had met some people at a concert or maybe at the Quartet convention. And so I actually had some numbers of what it would cost, and I had some things they could listen to, that this is what it would sound like. And, talked about folks that we owed a debt to. Our folks, it was an expensive project.
Sure.
And and they funded that, and all of us went. Our parents went to
Up to Paris, Tennessee.
Paris, Tennessee, and my mom and dad and Lance's mom and dad, I don't know if your folks did not, they bought trees. There was some place selling trees
Yep.
up there. And Lance said, what James tell you, or your mama said?
He said that's Chuck Cruz's tree there over.
Did it just die?
It just it got blown over there.
Yeah.
I mean, it's my wife Allison and I will talk about it all the time. She went on that trip. I mean, she was like, we were dating. It was like, let's all go, and it was in Paris, Tennessee. We thought we were big time. So
Well, and
And one reason why, and the reason you came up with that sales pitch, a big reason is when you sing at a big concert like that, well, where's your album?
right.
And so it just organically becomes, okay, well, now we need an album.
And
There
plus,
you go.
And back then, and we'll talk about that later, but your albums, we came along at the time where, and you can look at these old graphs and see how recorded music was sold and in what numbers. And you would think that, okay, when 78 albums came out, in the 50s, 60s, 70s, because everybody had collections of those, that was the time when most people were buying recorded music. No. When CDs came out, the numbers skyrocketed because people saw that as permanent, and so that was a big part of your revenue stream as artists, because we sold them at the concert. So if we sang at a church and they took up $1,000, that was great. But you might sell $1,500 in product. And so it was a big part of allowing you to stay on the road and do what you did. But it also, helped build relationships with folks who liked your repertoire. There's something personal that happens when you bring someone's music into your home and you listen to it with your family, and then it becomes a cross-generational thing
And we're coming full circle. Right now, people are putting LPs back out. They're putting CDs out. They're putting cassettes back out. Major artists, because you want a piece of that something. So when we were in concert, it was like, oh, here's the CD. I'm going to get this one because it had that song that I like. Would you sign it for me? Sure. Get the Sharpies out. Here we go. And you sign it, and that's something they can take home, and that's a keepsake. And so that's where we found out during this whole 35 years, early on, cassettes and CDs, that was just, you're going to move those because people want that thing. And then we come along to the digital age, and it's like, why aren't these selling? But they're coming back around, kind of.
And
anyway.
Since we did not come out of that Southern gospel, vaudeville, Southern,
right.
We came out of the church, we were always very careful about, because there is a kind of icky line between Christianity and commerce, and we never did hard sales for records where we just beat an audience over the head, you got to have this, and we never did that. I always liked the honesty of, we go to a church, sometimes the church would pay a flat fee, but they would take up an offering to kind of offset that. I liked the idea of, we come, we sing, we're not selling anything but Jesus, right? And if you like the music, you put something in the offering plate. If you really like it, you buy a CD. But we're not asking you to sow a seed of faith into our ministry. Right, we're not asking you to, it was a very, and I think we talked about how those early concerts were very give and take between an artist and the audience. It's just a very honest give and, if you like this, great. If you don't, thanks for coming,
And that different from a lot of groups out there who are doing the hard sell, kind of pushing them.
Yeah. So there were a lot of groups you went to see, you're like, I won't come back. That was, that was over the top. The product pitch. That was a big deal.
And some groups did it fun. The Kings would always do it funny, and so, but that's 5 or 10 minutes after their first hour set, but before the intermission. But some groups really leaned into that and gave big hard sales pitches.
I think that's another reason we were in some churches and not in others. We wanted to get away from the stigma of, oh, that's that group, because there were those groups like they will just wear our audience out, and we're just trying to sell trinkets and stuff. And we're trying to make some music.
And there's a big difference in doing that on a stage in a high school auditorium on Saturday night and doing that in a church at the end of the service. That was always something.
There'd be groups selling Bibles to send to Russia, whether they ever went to Russia or not, and they'd be selling, necklaces and all kinds. It looked like a Christian yard sale, and we just always found that distasteful. And we were talking the other day. One reason I think we've been successful, we have never. You can fleece a sheep many times, but you can't. You can shear a sheep many times, but you can't skin it but once. And we, whenever we started doing concerts at the high school that were ticketed, we put ticket prices low. So everybody who wanted to come could come. We didn't do a hard sell and our record tables had CDs or tapes on them. I think at one time somebody did some T-shirts for us.
They were terrible.
But, and we had pictures that we would sign. But if you bought anything, you got one for free. So I do think that you're right. I think that's the reason we got invited to sing at some places that some others would not. I mean,
Where they'd be
15, 16
burned.
years old,
Yeah.
singing at First Baptist churches in
It takes a lot of faith on their
you
part.
know, with 800,
Yeah.
900, 1,000 folks there. And in college, we were singing at churches with 15, 1,800
Right.
folks there. It doesn't take but one minister of music telling his friends, man, they pulled, you ain't
Yeah.
gonna believe
Don't
it.
hell want them.
And then it's over.
Yeah.
Another thing that really helped us, and we just sang for a friend over in Alabama who was the evangelism director for the Alabama Baptist Convention. And he had heard us somewhere, and so he would book us at the Alabama Evangelism Conference, which every pastor and most every minister of music in the state would be at. So he would book us to come sing at that before every preacher, you know, and they'd have different preachers preaching throughout the day. So you could book your whole year at one of those evangelism conferences. And Mississippi did the same thing. Marcus Pegler in Mississippi.
They're all good too. And that's, again, I won't belabor this point, but that's what set us apart from the other groups. We came up in church. We were there. We were, I won't call it even naive, but we knew what we knew about church. And we were there to sing our music. And if you want a CD, and I think that's why we talk about it a lot as well. We didn't really break into the mainstream. We did a lot of singing and a lot of, you know, we got to be a lot of really awesome places, which I'm sure we'll talk about. But we were somewhere over here when everybody else is in Southern Gospel here. We were somewhere doing our own thing, and we're okay with that. It was that's all
We were
needed.
more than okay with
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
I thought the other day we really did things our way, not like in a Sinatra kind of, you know, oh, we did it. But
Right.
you know, there were voices along the way that said this is the path to success, and we just always kind of knew our lane. You know, we so many folks told us after we graduated college, you need to be in Nashville, because if you're in Nashville, then you know, if somebody cancels at the Grand Ole Opry, they're gonna call the gospel booking agents and say, hey, who you got? And if you live in Nashville and you can be there in an hour, you're on the Opry tonight, or you're on the Nashville Networks, their big show they had.
Or you're around the people that you need to be around.
That's
to-
right. And we rejected that. We all loved our hometown, and we wanted to remain. We saw what happened to people that did that. And they took a left turn somewhere, and we did not want to do that. Bill Gaither wanted us to hire a bass singer, Chris Weaver, who lives in New Albany. He was singing with another group, and, you know, word came down Gaither would use us more if we had that bass singer. We're like, yeah, but we got to steal him from a group of friends. So
True.
we're not doing that.
No.
You know, we're not doing that. But they came from that business side of gospel music where, well, hey, if they're your friends, they'll understand. We came from the church side of, no, they won't. You know, that's, so, you know, and there were other things that we just weren't going to do.
Right. Sure.
Yeah, and we so we recorded in '92. We had 1,000 cassettes,
Oh yes.
and we got rid of all of them somehow. And if you have one of those, post it in the comment. I'm just kidding. But they're still around.
This was from your Paris, Tennessee.
Paris,
recording
Tennessee,
studio. What was the name
privately
of it?
funded.
Only the best.
Only the best.
We Othel Andy took the shot. He took the photo, and I was looking pretty raw. But anyway,
It was pretty ugly.
So we had that, and of course, I dated Alice Nash, so Daryl took
took all the
most
rest.
of the rest,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And then we had, of course, on into it as things progressed. Nashville, they had photographers and things for us, but.
I think we're getting ahead though. So we
I was trying to take it ahead.
yeah,
I was
okay.
trying to take
Where
it
you wanna
ahead.
go? Where you wanna go?
Keep it
so
moving.
so after Brad and I were seniors. Lance was a junior. We were fixing to leave to go to college, and so
We graduated in '93.
yes, and
Lance
I was in the
94.
student council, and we decided we would do a gospel music concert fundraiser for the high school student council, and since we were going to college, it was our farewell concert.
Yeah.
So our first farewell concert was in 1993.
That's right.
And we had the Statesman Quartet from that golden age come to New Albany, and we had a house full
It was
of
great.
folks, and it was great. And we thought that was it. So Brad and I left to go to college, and that's kind of the end of the beginning.
Right, that was
Yeah.
going to be 1991 to 1993.
2 years.
That's it.
Good run.
Y'all were leaving Lance in high school.
That's right.
That's
I'll see
right.
you
We were
guys
going to
later.
Mississippi College, 4 hours away.
Right, there's no way this is going to work. There's no way this is going to happen. And we were all, I mean, it was a fun run while it lasted. So, but God always has other things in plan. So,
And people now will forget what 1992 was like. That doesn't sound like long ago to me.
right.
It sounds a long time ago to my kids, but that was before cell phones.
Mm-hmm.
There was no internet. When you were 4 hours away, that was a long
It's
distance.
a different world.
Mm-hmm.
And so for us to say, yeah, we were breaking up at that point because of that seems
There's no
funny
way
at this point.
A senior
but-
in high school is going to come down to
Yeah,
It's
that
not
just
going to work.
that was not feasible.
Right.
Not for us to be good students and pursue something else, you know. But
But that's
anyway, that's
That's
where
good.
we were in '93.